Imagine walking into a customer meeting already knowing the history, the risk, the sentiment, without a single prep call. That's not the future vision. That's what account planning looks like when it actually works. This is not a story about AI feature. It's about why account planning keeps breaking at scale. I'm Jelena, and you're watching AI4Sales Edge, where sales leaders see how AI is changing the way teams plan, sell, and grow. I remember sitting in account planning meetings, staring at the deck we built 2 months earlier. Half the data was already outdated. The CSM had left. The account executive forgot to update the renewal risk. So instead of talking strategy, we spent the meeting aligning on facts. And that was normal. And looking back, that was the problem. And this is the part that was actually broken. Decisions were not failing because people didn't care. They were failing because decisions were being made on outdated information, which meant ownership lived in people's heads, not in the system. When truth is not owned by the system, decision-making slows down, fragments, and becomes political. This wasn't a planning problem. This was decision ownership problem. Planning just made it visible. The old logic was simple. If deck exists, we assume we are prepared. Account plans were built in January and forgotten by February. They only came back when an executive needed a quick overview before a call. Every update was manual, painful, disconnected. Planning wasn't continuous. It happened in moments, usually right before a meeting. And that's why it kept breaking under pressure. So the real question isn't how do we prepare better? It's why are we still planning this way at all? Because what changed is not effort. What changed is how planning is designed. Gainsight has a full suite of AI tools focused on expansion and customer growth. But there is one capability that stands out and that I kept coming back to: cheat sheet. To me, cheat sheet is not just a dashboard. It's what account planning should have been all along. Before, planning lived in documents, slides, emails, notes in people's heads. Now, planning lives in the system. Cheat sheet replaces static decks with one living source of truth, always current and always ready. Not another view, a different model. Before, meetings were about aligning on facts. Now, meetings are about deciding what to do next. This is not a productivity improvement. It's a shift in how decision ownership works. When the system owns the truth, people can own the decision. In enterprise environments like SAP Linux, which works with more than 1,500 customers, Gainsight's platform supports scale, and cheat sheet plays a key role in alignment. What used to require multiple tools and handoffs now exists in one shared view. Executives walk into a meeting with a live context instead of waiting for decks or chasing updates. That's how teams scale without losing control of customers' health. The difference is not speed, it's control. Because when everyone sees the same reality, decisions stop being negotiated. At Sight, a visual AI company working with the major retailers, leadership teams preparing for brand-facing meetings don't scramble anymore. Sentiments, history, risk, it's all there. For executives, that's the difference between guessing and knowing. And that only works when the system, not the individuals, own the truth. Otherwise, preparation depends on memory, and memory doesn't scale. This is the real shift. Before, account planning happened in moments, usually right before a meeting. Now, it's continuous. One source of truth, shared, current, actionable. Cheat sheet is not just efficient, it's strategic infrastructure. So what does this look like when speed matters? An account executive gets a last-minute call with a VP. The executive summary is ready. A CSM prepared for QBR, risk is already flagged. Since leaders review territory, health score are live. This is not prep. This is account planning reinvented. Senior leaders Strategy lives or dies in how your team shows up to key accounts. When the data is right and ready, nobody walks in guessing. That's how decisions start moving faster than risk. Cheat sheet didn't add to the planning process. It replaced it. Outdated account plans are not just inefficient anymore. They are risky. Some teams have already moved to real-time planning. The only question is, are you still planning in PowerPoint? And here is your question for this week. Where in your organizations are decisions still being made on outdated information? And what's the cost of that in your most important accounts? Subscribe to AI4Sales Edge. Real stories, real results, no fluff.